My name is Serena Holt, and I was 34 the night my father read one page and sat down without being asked. 2 weeks earlier, my parents had announced they were selling my grandmother's house, with her still living in it. They said it the way you'd read a grocery list, and that calm was the cruelest part. But the folder my grandmother handed across the table that night wasn't the end of anything. It was the part they couldn't undo. So they tried to undo my grandmother instead. They had a plan for the house. They did not have a plan for her. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where we sit with the quiet people who kept the receipts and watch what happens when an entitled family finally meets the paperwork. If a story ever made you pick up the phone and check on someone you love, you already belong here. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. My grandfather built that house in 1961, board by board, on a half-acre at the end of Wexler Road. Earl Holt poured the porch himself. He set the door frames a quarter inch out of true and never fixed them, because my grandmother said a house should have a little crookedness, same as people. After he died, 6 years ago, Opal stayed. She was 83 then, and everybody waited for her to fall apart. She didn't. She kept the garden, kept the porch light burning every single night, and kept her tea. That was the thing you learned first about my grandmother. Every afternoon at 4, she set out 2 cups, even when she was alone, even when nobody came. The spoon against the china made a small clean sound, like a tiny bell ringing a meeting to order. I came by every week. I lived 15 minutes away, across town in a one-bedroom over the hardware store, and I'd drive over after work and we'd sit on the porch and not say much. She'd pour. The light would be on before I ever reached the steps. Warm and yellow, like she'd lit it for me before I knew I was coming. I used to think that light meant nothing here would ever change. I was a paralegal at a little firm 2 streets off the square, the kind of office that did wills and deeds and the slow, careful work of helping old people decide where things go. I spent my days reading other families' arrangements. I never once imagined I'd need to read my own. It came out at Sunday dinner, at my parents' house on the other side of town. My mother served pot roast and waited until the plates were full, which I later understood was strategy. She set down the gravy and said it plainly. "We're putting your grandmother's house on the market. It's time." My father nodded at his plate. My brother Derek kept eating. I set my fork down. "On the market," I said. "While she's living in it?" My mother folded her napkin into a perfect square. "She can't manage out there anymore, Serena. The yard, the stairs, all of it. We found a place. Maple Crest. The memory care wing. They have an opening." I said Gran climbed those stairs every day and managed fine. My mother gave me the look she saves for when I'm being difficult. "It's just logistics, honey," she said. "The memory care place takes her Medicaid." She said it like that settled everything, like my grandmother was a line item, and the line had finally been reconciled. The pot roast went cold in front of me. I looked at my father, who used to lift me onto that crooked porch when I was small, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Derek, who shrugged like the whole thing was weather. "Has anyone," I said, very evenly, "actually asked her?" The silence that came back told me everything. They hadn't asked Opal. They weren't going to. They'd already toured the facility, already called somebody about the house, already divided up a future that wasn't theirs to divide. I drove the long way home that night, past Wexler Road, and the porch light was on. It looked, for the first time, like something that needed protecting. I should tell you what I am in this family, so you understand why nobody worried about me getting in the way. I'm the one who handles things. When Derek totaled his first car, I found the lawyer. When my parents' furnace died on Christmas Eve, I called the repair line and paid the deposit. When Earl was dying, I sat the night shifts at the hospital because somebody had to and everybody else had reasons. I don't say that to sound noble. It's closer to a flaw than a virtue. I take on what isn't mine until I forget the difference, and I'd gotten so used to carrying things that the family had stopped noticing the weight. They thought of me as reliable, which is another word for furniture. So when they planned to sell Opal's house, it never crossed their minds that the reliable one might plant her feet. They figured I'd grumble and then organize the move, label the cabinets, drive the boxes. They had the wrong idea about me, and I let them keep it. Because the wrong idea is sometimes the most useful thing a quiet person owns. I didn't raise my voice at that dinner. I didn't cry. I went home and I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea I'd made the way Gran taught me, and I thought about what I actually knew. I knew my parents were in a hurry. I knew people in a hurry skip steps. And I knew, from 8 years of reading deeds for a living, that you cannot sell a house you don't fully own. That last thought sat down beside me and didn't leave. My father wasn't cruel. He was drowning, which can look the same from the outside. Roy Holt had run a landscaping and grading outfit for 30 years, and 2 bad seasons and 1 defaulted contract had hollowed it out. He'd refinanced his own house to cover payroll, then refinanced again to cover the first refinance. I learned the numbers later, but I could read the shape of it that spring just from how he held his shoulders. He'd started calling the sale the responsible thing. He said it to me on the phone a few days after the dinner, his voice careful and rehearsed. Mom's house is just sitting there, Serena. It's $400,000 of equity doing nothing. We could solve a lot of problems. We, he said, like the equity already had our name on it. I asked him whose problems. He didn't answer that. He told me Maple Crest was a good place, clean, that they did crafts and had a garden, and I believed the place was fine. That wasn't the question. The question was whether a frightened man gets to decide that his mother's home is a resource to be liquidated because his own house was sinking. I felt for him. I want to be honest about that. I have felt the cold math of money panic, the way it makes decent people reach for things that aren't theirs and call it sense. But feeling for him didn't change the deed, and somewhere underneath the fear, my father had made a choice. He'd decided to be sorry later, if at all, and rich sooner. So I stopped arguing with him on the phone. Arguing was a tool that didn't fit this job. Derek fell in line the way water finds the low spot. My brother is 30, and he was behind on a truck loan and 3 months light on child support for his son, and somewhere in the planning he'd been promised a piece. He didn't say it to me outright. He said things around it. Once the house sells, things'll loosen up. Dad's gonna take care of everybody. He'd convinced himself it was fair, that he was owed, though nobody could have told you for what. That's the part that still turns my stomach a little. Not that he was greedy, but that the greed wore the costume of decency, of family taking care of family, while the actual family member at the center of it poured tea alone on Wexler Road and had no idea her grandchildren were dividing the roof over her head. I found out at a barbecue that the 3 of them had already met with a realtor named Cindy from a brokerage out by the highway. Met with her, walked the property, talked square footage and comps and a quick close, while Opal was at her hair appointment so she wouldn't see the car in the drive. They'd timed it around her schedule. That's when I stopped thinking of this as a disagreement and started thinking of it as a thing being done to someone. To my grandmother.